Hello and welcome to the AFR Atlanta Falcons review for the OMFL's Atlanta Falcons. I am your host, Mike Fleury, and in this episode, we are going to recap what has happened so far in the offseason. We are presently sitting at week 3 of free agency. The draft is going to start in about 17 and a half hours from when I am recording. We will be doing the pause draft. But there's been a lot done already, a lot to recap, a lot to talk about. So let's just jump into it. Originally, I had intended on keeping some of my draft picks after the team switch. I had taken over Atlanta. They had really good picks. It was kind of weird going from an 11-6 playoff team to having the 5th overall pick to barter with. But my intention was to trade the first, as I usually do, and keep the rest for the actual draft. Because it had seemed, based on how everything was mapping out, like there was a good chance that I could actually attend, which is very rare because I work overnights, which means that unless I have a day off, I can't be here past like 9:20 Eastern, which when the draft starts at 9 doesn't even get you through part of the first round. Even with a pause draft, you're talking maybe early second. So unless I have a day off, I just can't be here. I don't think I've ever actually attended a draft in more ways than just watching it on my phone on my way to or at work and commenting in the chat. This was going to be the first time, at least it seemed like, that I was going to actually be not only drafting my players, but also interacting with people, which got me a little excited because it meant, as this is my second year doing content, I'm getting a little better doing it, and I'm getting a little more comfortable on the mic. So it was opening doors for things that I could do to contribute. Unfortunately, it didn't work out this time. While Saturday did win the vote, it didn't win it by enough to be any kind of landslide. And because of that, executive decision was made to do it on a night that made more sense to the people that actually have to run the draft. Makes total sense. Sucks a little bit for me because I wasn't going to be able to be there. So I decided to start looking about trading my picks. Funny enough, I actually finally figured out remote play, which I have never been able to get working. I finally figured it out. But by that point, I'd already sort of gone too far in the trade negotiations. I'd been negotiating with like the Rams and a couple other teams for hours and hours. So I felt a little pot committed to trading those picks. And then I figured out how to do the remote play, which means at the very worst next season, no matter when the draft is, I will finally be able to actually attend and draft. It's different when you can do both. Watching the stream and commenting and stuff is fine, but if you're not picking your own players, you feel like a passenger, and you're just hoping the CPU doesn't draft you 6 receivers because all the players you have in between the receivers get drafted, and the CPU doesn't have a common sense brain. It just goes in order of your list. So I would rather trade those picks and get players I know rather than take a chance at the draft order falls out the way I would like it to. But next season, as I said, I'll finally be able to attend. I'm preemptively very excited for that. It takes about 2 months to get us through a season, give or take. It's almost 2 months to the day that we did last draft. So by this time in March March, I guess, we'll be doing the next draft, and hopefully I can be a part of it and maybe make some content from it. Do some stuff for Nate and the OMFL show if there's time to do that before I go to work or whatever. So ultimately, where we end up is that we have no draft picks left, minus our 5th, 6th, 7th, and a lot of new players and a lot of trades to discuss. So let's jump into it. First trade, my first round pick. I knew I wanted to trade my first round pick, mostly because there is never a time where people are more eager to trade literally anything for a first round pick than right before the draft. It's like everybody gets swept up in this, new players, new draft pick thing, and you can get away with a lot. You can get a lot of pieces for one pick. You can get a lot of game changers if you do it right, as long as the Neon Sports value equals out thereabouts. You can get 2, 3, sometimes 4 pieces that can actually make a difference on your team right now for the value of a really good first round pick. And for a team like Atlanta that has a lot of holes and a lot of aging spots where I needed to start addressing some of the issues. Thankfully, Hurt had done a lot of work on some of the other ones, gave me a lot of depth to move some stuff around. So I was able to focus a little more heavily on certain positions. I had a lot of offers for pick number 5, and then the Jaguars came around. Nysonger was looking to replace the draft picks I had traded away while in Jacksonville. I floated some ideas, and eventually we got to my first round pick, along with running back Tank Bigsby, who I had traded to Atlanta, I don't know, week 6 or 7, I think, in this past season, along with wide receiver Xavier Gipson for Juan Peterson, who was my, I believe, 3rd round draft pick, auto draft player. Turned out fairly well, actually. Currently a 23-year-old, 76-ish overall offensive guard, star development. Been really solid for me. Really good base. So I've been really happy with him. And on top of that, I also got Brian Thomas Jr., my superstar wide receiver, who I have put so much time into developing over the last 2 seasons. This past season, 82 receptions, 1,800 yards, 16 touchdowns. I got him. He was a star development when I took over. I used the incentive to move him to superstar. Through the season, I was able to get him X Factor. Cost me a little bit to get a hold of him, but bringing him over to my team means I don't have to replace him in my offense, because my offense stays the same, and I have pieces for it. Drake London taking the Colin Fredrickson role. Rondale Moore, while speedy, is a little small, and I don't think he can play the routes that I tend to ask Brian Thomas Jr. to play, because there's like a 5-inch, 6-inch different in height. He's 5'7". No, there's a 8-inch difference in height between Brian Thomas Jr. and Rondale Moore, and that is pretty huge when you're asking somebody to get some contested plays and make big time catches. So having him back in my offense gives me a chance to really bring what I had in Jacksonville over, and I was just starting to get comfortable in Jacksonville, so hopefully this works out for me. We'll see how my offense develops this season. There's a good chance that because I know I can attend next year's draft, I will be keeping my first and second round picks in case I need to go after quarterback, need to trade up or something. So we'll see how it develops out, but getting Brian Thomas Jr. back into my offense at least pushes everybody into the proper slot. And getting Juan Peterson helps out an offensive line that is frankly a little, it's fine in real life, but it's aging. I had to let go of a lot of pieces this year. Most of them went to free agency. Matthews retired. I needed to replace some spots. Even some of the players that we have, Drew Dahlman's kind of more of a situational player than an every down player. So it's taken a lot of time and effort into developing this offensive line, but I think I've done it through trades and free agency. We have one more trade to discuss, so let's get into that one right now. The second trade took no less time to figure out. As I explained earlier, I wasn't sure I was going to do it, but over time and discussion and thinking I wouldn't be able to attend the draft, I ended up finding a really interesting situation where I found somebody motivated to make some moves to get some cheaper players and to get a bunch of draft picks. And what it ended up with is me getting Olu Fashanu back. He had been traded from Jacksonville after I left to the Rams, and then from the Rams to me. Now, that used to not be possible, and starting next season it won't be possible again. You can't trade a player twice in one season. I totally get it. Luckily, it wasn't a thing this year because it allowed me to really kind of finish off my offensive line with Fashanu at my left tackle, Bergeron at left guard, probably Rasheed Walker at center, Peterson on right guard, and then Chris Lindstrom on my right tackle. I've been able to fix what was just a couple days ago a weakness of mine. On top of that, I was able to get Keanu Benton. He's a 25-year-old, 81 overall defensive tackle, which allows me to move Braylon Trice and Brandon Dorless to the outside. So I get a little bit better run blocking, and they're more power rush threats. So they should be pretty good in most situations. I still have Ebiketie to do some situational pass rushing, but I've kind of really beefed up my defensive line. Unfortunately, part of the trade was I also traded A.J. Terrell. 93 overall corner. Very good corner. But at 27, I started thinking about, he might hit regression as early as next season. The problem with that is I wouldn't be able to use the regression prevention on him because I intend to use it on Chris Lindstrom to keep him a god tier offensive lineman for another season. So I had to start figuring out what I'm doing with my secondary. I have Oscar Winthrop. I have Oscar Bernard at corner. I've moved Max Woodson down to corner. He's a little smallish, but he's also small for safety, so it didn't really matter where I put him. I figured maybe as a situational corner, he might be pretty good. Hurt had told me when I took over the team, he'd suggested that I just let him go. He just wasn't performing the way Hurt hoped he would in this Madden. I gave him a franchise tag. We're going to give him a 1-year chance, see what he's like at corner. or maybe I'll put him back to safety if he's a real problem. I am still looking into not drafting, trading for a corner next season. But right now, nobody really wants to trade for future picks, and they think they're completely worthless until they can't trade their players this draft, and then the draft happens, and then suddenly we're in next season, and those draft picks are suddenly valuable again. So I'm going to circle back to a bunch of teams and see what they think about my second or third round pick then. Speaking of next season draft picks, part of the AJ Terrell bunch of draft pick deal was I got a future second back from the Rams. So next season I will have 2 seconds to play around with. But this season is not the season I intend to compete really for division or playoffs anyways. I really just wanted to spend a year building out the team, which, to be fair, is what I intended to do first year in Jacksonville, and I won 12 games. So, you never really know, but that said, Jacksonville was a much better team to start off with than Atlanta was. At least they were for this Madden. And even with all the work Hurt has done, and it shows, he's done a lot of work, they still aren't where they need to be to really be a very good team right now. Right now. But that said, again, it's also kind of hard to tell because he had a bit of a rough season, so a lot of their overalls are down. So I don't really know, and I'm not going into each player to see exactly how much. So all these players are down 1 to 3 overall. Some of their attributes are down. So we'll get a better picture of what these players are in about 2 days, give or take. Now that I've wrapped up all of the trades and the moves, and at the end of it, I've brought back multiple pieces from my Jacksonville Jaguars run. I have to say, one of the things I talked about in the first episode was people's emotional attachment to their own team, and how sometimes they can't divorce themselves from that and remove players that don't work in Madden because they are fans of them in real life. What I hadn't accounted for was how it would feel personally to switch teams mid-Madden and then watch somebody else go about dismantling the thing that you had built. Now, I had planned out multiple seasons worth of what I was going to do with this team, so I knew everything that was going to happen with my players from the end of the season until the end of the cycle. So that was never going to happen. But when you look at the team that Nysonger is building, one, it's a really solid team. Like, there's nothing wrong with the way he's building it. It's just watching all of the players that he's traded away. In this instance, Fashanu, Brian Thomas, even though Brian Thomas went to me, Peterson. He made the trade with the Rams where he traded ETN and obviously Fashanu, I already said that. And Campbell is gone, and then I think he's made other deals. I think he's done all 4 already. And you look at the roster now, and it's Najee Harris at running back, Jordan Addison, and Adonai Mitchell at receiver, basically. Jeremiah Herbert, I have no idea who that is. That was obviously a first-round pick last year. Really good tight end. But, I traded for Michael Mayer. That was going to be my future at the position. And, he's got some free agent signings and stuff. And he picked up Caleb McGarry from Atlanta. I think that was a 2-year deal. I didn't love it personally because I figured regression was going to hit pretty hard next season. But brought him in, Zach Tom So the offensive line has completely changed, and I put a lot of time into building that up, but that's completely changed now. He got Jeremiah Owusu Karama to play linebacker to take over for uh, Foyesade Alabakun, who he released, I believe, via the no cut bonus. Uh, I'm just going through the roster now. He's still got Cisco. I thought he traded Cisco, but no, he traded Campbell. He was talking about trading Lattimore, but I don't think he's going to be able to do that now. I think he's used all 4 of his trades. Just going through it, it's like some of the players are still the same, but it's like it hit really hard to see some of those trades because it's not the team that I had built, and I didn't realize the emotional hit that would take to be like, oh, what are you doing? I had built this. I did that. You just why didn't why didn't you do the thing I was going to do? Which obviously nobody was like. I'm definitely not doing the thing Big Hurt was going to do, and I doubt Hurt's doing the thing Niceauger was going to do in Minnesota. That's how that works, obviously, but like I hadn't anticipated the kind of gut punch of like looking at the roster and seeing so much change over the course of a couple days. So I just thought it was kind of funny, given that I had done the whole speech in last episode talking about how, sentimentality, who needs it? I'm going to rip apart this team if I have to. And now I'm looking at Jacksonville going, why are you ripping apart my team? Finishing up this look into my off season as it stands now, I have, as I said, finished with 2 rounds of free agency. So I've done some limited roster structuring based on the amount of money I had. Next season's going to be much better in terms of the amount of dollars I have available. I have 5 or 6 big money players coming off the board, and only maybe 2 of them are getting re-signed. So hopefully I'll be able to reform the parts of the team that need to be reformed. Hopefully by that point, if I'm honest, other teams will have hit cap problems. We will be 3 seasons in. Everybody's probably already used their incentive to remove the bonus to cut a player from their team. So I'm kind of hoping next season maybe some people are in some dire straits financially, and I can pick apart some needs in free agency. As for what I have already done, I've grabbed Jerome Ford to be my backup running back. He is going to make roughly $12 million over 3 years. So that's about $4 million per, which is less than Algier was going to make. He also has 91 speed, 94 carry. His carry is not that much worse than Algier's. 91 speed means when he hits the hole, he can actually do something with some room, whereas Algier is basically just a goal line back. I grabbed Rasheed Walker. He's probably going to be my center for at least a season or 2. He's probably not my long-term option. He won't grow that much, I don't believe. I think he's maybe got one more level in him. It's about 10K, and he's at about 8. So next season he should get 1. But 78 overall is more than good enough to play at least periodically. He's a really good situational blocker. Specifically, he's a very good pass blocker. He's not a terrible run blocker. He's pretty good at it, but he is much better as a pass blocker, and especially over Dahlman. I think Dahlman's a little bit better of a run blocker, so we might look to get him some playing time, but generally speaking, Walker should see most of the snaps this season. We grabbed Michael Davis, 24 years old, 74 overall. He's somebody I might be able to build up over time. He's kind of a failsafe right now. We're going to see how things go with him. He's only played 1 year, but he's already 24. So it might not be easy to develop him, but at the price, which was about 3 million, it's worth the chance to at least see, and then maybe re-sign him in the off season next year. I went and got Daniel Bellinger to be my backup tight end. I do run quite a few 2 tight end sets, so it'd be nice to have somebody with a little bit of speed. 85 speed, 89 acceleration. He can make some catches. I've used him in other leagues and offline and whatnot. He doesn't have the drop ball trait, which is nice. He's not particularly good at like catching traffic or catching in general. It's 84 catching, 76 in traffic. But I don't throw to the tight end that much anyways, and it's really nice to have a second option for those plays. I might have to look into a better blocking tight end, but I mean his run block's 66. That's not too bad actually. So we'll see. We'll see going forward, but it's good to have somebody behind Pitts. And then Corliss Waitman, just a punter with a strong leg. Just a cheap $1.3 million punter. Not much to go there. I have a couple more offers out. Just looking at some linebackers. I would say cheap, but they're not cheap. They're just some linebackers, mostly. A little bit of depth. I think I have most of my team set up now. I do have a couple players on the block. I do have still 2 defensive tackles or 2 defensive linemen on the block that I might consider trading because I have a little extra depth to play with now. But the trade I would need to make to do that would be I can't fathom it right now. I can't think of anything that I need so desperately that at least for this coming season, especially if I'm not looking to be overly competitive, I don't see a reason to really spend too much resources, especially with all my defensive linemen being really young. I've really dropped the overall age of this team significantly, so hopefully I'll be able to grow them out a bit over the course of this season. There's still some good free agents. I got about 18 million left. I want to keep that in case when we get into the off season, some people are willing to move some more expensive players at maybe corner, maybe linebacker, but not really sure. I'm not sure I really need it, but maybe linebacker, safety possibly. Xavier Howard, as I said, is going to be fine, but if there are options out there, I would like to take them. I would love to sign Brock Purdy. I know his throw power is trash, but all of his other attributes are so good. 97 short, 99 mid, 92 deep, 94 run, 91 under pressure, 88 play action. He's so good. But that 85 throw power is terrible, and he wants 50 million a year. He's not going to get that. He's going to go into in-season free agency. I don't know. Somebody's going to sign him. I don't know if I'm going to. I'd rather just try to build out Penix for another year and see what I have with him to figure out if I have to trade him or not, or draft somebody next season. But that's all we have there. Just a few moves. We have 49 players on the roster. We have 3 more in free agency bidding, plus 3 picks, plus I'll have a ton of money to do in-season free agents, and as I said, hopefully maybe make a trade or 2. I still have 2 trades left, so we'll see what we do there. That will be for next episode. I don't know when this one will be up. I'll probably have it up hopefully before the draft, but we'll see how I'm feeling tomorrow. I got a busy day tomorrow. So We'll find out. Anyways, this is going to end this episode, the second episode of season 3, which I believe is 114, 113, 112. Somebody will tell me. If you got this far, somebody who knows, send me a message. Tell me what day, what season we're in. I think it's 113. Anyways, I'm done rambling. This episode is going to be 30 minutes long. For the OMFL, no. For the OMFL Atlanta Falcons review, I've been Mike Fleury, and as always, try to do better next time.